In this video, we are going to cover the limitation of the dividend discount model. First, I will talk about a limitation of the constant dividend growth model, and I will introduce a solution to that limitation. Next, I will talk about general limitations of the dividend discount model. So let's first revisit the constant dividend growth model. The constant dividend growth model was a model that assumes dividends grow at a constant rate g forever. So the timeline for such a stock in which the dividends growth at the constant rate g would be something like that. So the dividends will grow at the rate g forever. So this timeline is exactly similar to a growth perpetuity timeline, so we can use the formula to calculate the present value of a growth perpetuity. And what we end up with is this formula. The constant dividend growth model is a appropriate model to value stocks of regulated companies such as utilities or mature companies. However, the dividend discount growth model and its assumption about a constant growth rate for dividend is too simplistic for most firms, especially for young firms. Why? I will provide two reasons. Young firms do not pay any dividend for a period of time. A classic example is Microsoft. So Microsoft went public in 1986 but started to pay dividend in 2003. So for a long period of time, Microsoft did not pay any dividend. Second, young firms' growth rate continues to changes over time until they mature. So there is no one growth rate that dividends will grow at that growth rate forever. However, we can have some new assumptions to overcome that limitation. For example, we can assume that a young firm have a high growth rate of G1 for several years, and then in the long run, it will have a constant growth rate of G2. Okay? So, to be more clear, let me draw a timeline and see how we can value a stock using multiple growth rates. Okay, so let's say this is our timeline. We want to know the value of stock at time 0. We want to know P0. Time 1, we have dividend 1. Time 2, we have dividend 2. Time 3, we have dividend 3. But here, I'm going to assume that the first 2 years, the company have irregular dividends, so there is no particular relation between dividend 1 and dividend 2. But from the year 3, dividends will grow at a constant rate g. So for the year 4, dividend 4 will be dividend 3 multiplied by 1 plus g. And then at time 5, it will be dividend 3 multiplied by 1 plus g to the power of 2. And at time 6, dividend 3 multiplied by 1 plus g to the power of 3. And it's going to continue forever. Okay, so this is dividend 3 multiplied by 1 plus g to the power of 3. Okay, so if I want to know the value of the stock, I need to do this. 1 plus, so this would be RE, then dividend 2 divided by 1 plus RE to the power of 2 plus dividend 3 1 plus RE to the power of 3. And then instead of writing the rest of the dividends, which goes on forever, I can say that we just learned about the constant dividend growth rate model. So for this part, I can say because the dividend is growing at the constant rate g, I can value the stock at time time 3, and I can calculate the price at time t. So the price at time t, if I know the price at time t, it would replace all these future payments. So if I know the price at time t, I can write P3 instead of all these future payments, which they go on forever. And then because it's I need to still discount this P3 to time 0 to calculate the value of stock at time 0. But what left is how can I calculate P3? So remember from the constant dividend growth model that P0 was equal to dividend 1 divided by RE minus G. So similarly here I can say P3 is equal to dividend at time 4 divided by R minus G. Okay, so if I put this there, we are done. We can calculate the value of stock at time 1 using this formula. Okay, so in the next slide I'm going to solve an example to see for you to see how it really works. Okay, so here is an example. Bain Corporation has the following expected dividends: $2 in 1 year, $2.5 in 2 years, and $3 in 3 years. After that, its dividends are expected to grow at 5% per year forever. If Bain Corporation equity cost of capital is 10%, what is the current price of its stock? Okay, so first of all, let me draw a timeline. So we want to know the value of stock at time 0. So what we are really want to know is P0. And time 1, the problem says we will have a $2 dividend. At time 2, we will have 2.5. At time 3, we will have $3. Then from year 4, we will have the dividend will grow at a constant rate of 5%. So I would write it as this. So for year 5, it will be 3 multiplied by 105 to the power of 2, and for year 6 it will be 3 multiplied by 105 to the power of 3, and it goes like this forever. So if I want to calculate the price, I can write P0 equals to dividend at time 1, which is 2, divide by, so RE is 10%, right? So I can write 2 divided by 1.1 plus dividend at time 2 divided by 1 plus 1.1 to the power of 2, then plus 3 divided by 1.1 to the power of 3, and for this part I can just write P3 divided by 1 plus 1 to the power of 3. So how can I calculate P3 again? For P3, I'm going to use another color. So P3 is dividend at time 4 divided by RE minus G. Okay, so here G is 5%. And dividend at time 4 is 3 multiplied by 105, which is 3.15, then divided by 10% minus 5%. So this is equal to 63. So then if I want to calculate P0, I need to calculate each of these numbers separately. So I have done that, and I'm going to write the final answer here. So the final answer would be 53.47 cents. So the value of stock at time 0 equals to $53.47. So again, what I did here is that, so for each of these irregular dividends, I'm just going to calculate their present value, and then starting at time 4, the dividends will grow at a constant rate. So I can calculate P3 right here as dividend 4 divided by RE minus G. So after I've done that, I can replace the value of P3, 63 here. So then if I calculate this whole thing, I would end up with 53.47. Okay. So in this last slide, I'm going to talk about the general limitation of dividend discount model. I want to mention two general limitations. First, many companies do not pay dividends, and these are some of these companies are famous companies such as Amazon or Facebook. So the question is, how should we value these firms? The dividend discount model simply doesn't work for non-dividend paying stocks, because let's say if we write the general formula, we have dividend 1 divided by 1 plus RE plus dividend at time 2, 1 plus RE to the power of 2, and this goes forever. Okay, but it, the company, the firm, is a non-dividend paying firm, so each of these dividends are 0, and if we discount back those zeros, P0 would be equal to 0, which is incorrect. So we cannot use dividend discount model to value non-dividend paying stocks. The second limitation is that this dividend discount model is very sensitive to the inputs. But as we know, in reality, it's difficult to estimate dividend payments and growth rates because those are the dividend payments are risky cash flows, and it's not easy to calculate growth rates as well. So let me give an example here. So recently, Boeing has announced that it will suspend its dividend payments due to the coronavirus. So if an analyst have an estimation for dividend payments of Boeing this year and come up with a price for Boeing stocks using that estimations, his model would be wrong. Okay, so again, this is another limitation of the DDM or dividend discount model. For our purposes, we will learn other stock valuation models in chapter 10. And another limitation of dividend discount model is that it does not account for share repurchases. In the next video, we will talk about share repurchases and the total payout model to see how we can account for share repurchases.